And he's back again, this time with better quality sounding. Listen to his sweet voice.
Woo!
Give me some Hushburn tones. Let me hear it.
Hey there, big boy. How you
Okay.
do?
Would you rather be famous if you owned a game show where you could talk and they'd have the little Bobby Brown microphone in front of your face? Or would you rather be a famous sex phone operator where no one would know who you really are, like your voice, or they would know your voice, just not your face?
Hmm. I think that I would go for the fame where I was in the spotlight. I kind of like that. I like the recognition. I like when I hear a good word about me or something. It's like, oh, yum 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 yum. Give me all of that.
It's funny because like I was listening to a podcast episode with Miley Cyrus and she was talking about how like a lot of older people don't really know who she is, but when she talks, her voice is so distinguished and so recognized that people immediately know who it is. And it made me think, I'm like, how many times have I been on the phone with somebody and I'm talking to them and I don't know who this person is. I've never seen what they look like. Like I'll get a random phone call at like 7 p.m. from my doctor's office saying like, how was your rate your experience? You're on a recorded line. And I'm just like, you're calling me at 7 p.m., bro. Like, what system do you run by? But it makes me, I start imagining what they look like. I start trying to picture like, does this person have long hair, short hair? Are they fat? Are they fit? I have no clue. But my mind just goes off. And then you see the person, you're like, wow. I was picturing like a Brad Pitt character because of your soft, sweet tones, and you look like more like Danny DeVito.
I'm completely guilty of that. I will talk to people on the phone for a job or something, and then I'll show up for the first time, and they will just be 100% different than what I expected of them. And it's weird because you hear a voice and you hear that inflection and you think like, oh, I got this person down. You see this person in your head, this beautiful image of, oh, she's got this little Jewish old lady voice. I could just see her little, curlers in her hair, and then you see her and she's all done up in a pantsuit and you're like, whoa, okay, that's a lot different than what I was expecting.
Because someone pointed out to me, somebody I work with was like, your voice when you pick up the phone is a little bit different than the one you normally use. And the one I use for the podcast is my actual voice, just because, you do so many episodes trying to be like, hey, everybody. And it's like, it would not make sense. But when this woman called at the gym, I answered and I go, hello. And I like, my voice just gets higher because I think it sounds more innocent and it's a lot nicer. And she saw me. She walks in. She goes, "Were you the one that picked up the phone?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "You sound completely different when you're on the phone." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, right on." And then she gets done her workout, and I'm like, "What are you going to do with your Sunday?" And she's like, "Well, it's 7 a.m. I just finished my workout. I'm going to the liquor store. Then I'm going to make some mimosas." And then she started dancing out the door, and I was like, "It's fucking 7 a.m. and you're drinking mimosas at 7 a.m. But God bless you."
You got the customer service voice. That's all that is. You answer the phone and you're always just like ready to be super sweet. Anything that they need, I'm here to help you out with. Don't you worry, I'm right on top of this.
You
Yeah,
know,
I did it for years.
You know what would make
Years.
customer service 1,000 times better if they put somebody on the phone, like you had somebody working like an army of people that were just like basically deaf. Like talking to my great grandfather when I would call him up on like a birthday or Christmas or something, I'd be like, "Hey, pop pop," and he's just like, "Huh?" And you'd have to shout. So imagine that, like you're trying to get your internet fixed, and you're like, "Hi, welcome to Comcast. How may I help you with your service today? Is there anything? Is there an issue with an outage or something?" And guy goes, "Yeah, I'm trying to get my internet fixed." Dude goes, "You got to speak up, man. I can't really hear you." It's like, oh my God. And you're borderline shouting into your phone. I bet at that point, either your people are going to get so frustrated where they hang up, or they're going to have so much fun with it and just shout things like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then just start shouting like whispering tones of like, "You're an asshole." And the guy goes, "You got to speak up, son." It's like, I said, my internet's out.
I could see that. Yeah, that save them so much money on servicemen. They wouldn't have to send anybody out to a job. It would be perfect. They could make all the money and not have to put out any service.
Well, let's say what the old saying is that everyone fits somewhere, which I believe is true. Everybody probably has a role to play in life, a certain job that best fits them, things that so why is it limited? Like this gets me so upset is that like anytime you see like you go to a grocery store, who's pushing the carts? How would you describe that person?
Hmm. Uh yeah, I don't know where you're going with this.
Educationally inclined, I would say.
Educationally inclined, there's no such thing. The people that are walking around in the supermarket are numbskulls. They're moronic. Like 90% of the people out there are just complete and total idiots. They walk around in a daze. They have no clue who they are, what they're doing, where they're going, anything. They just follow the lines on the sidewalk and get to where they're going. You know, headphones blaring, not paying attention to traffic, walking out in front of you while you're driving. They don't care. I feel like that's like 90% of the people out there right now.
I was talking about the people that go and grab the shopping carts that are mentally challenged. It's like, is that the only job that people put them in, is to push shop? And it pisses me off so much because I think they're probably the purest of what people should be, which is like
I get what you're saying.
they don't have a fucking care in the world. And it's kind of like, because I know a kid I went to school with, he works at my local food line, and I talk to his mom when I'm going because she works there as well. She's a cashier. And I was like, does it ever get like hard sometimes? And she goes, I love him to death. He's the sweetest boy in the world. But just the biggest strain on my heart is the fact that I might be dead and he might be 40 still living here. And it's like, I want to make sure he's comfortable for the rest of the world. And I was like, at that point, if he's needs help, I would be there 100%. I've never been over this kid's house before, but it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I do have a piece of me that wants to help where I possibly can, but there's gotta be like, I talked to, I think my 30th, 40th episode. His name is Stevie J. He works trying to get people into certain jobs that have these specifications, have these things about them that are a little bit different than the normal, or what would maybe hold them back a little bit in the workforce. And he's like, every single one is a freaking shopping job or a grocery job or something, because they're really good at
Mm-hmm.
organization. They're very good at this. And I'm
Certainly.
like, man, there's got to be something better than that, dude. There's idiot savants, which are people that can like fly over a whole entire New York skyline, and out of just images of their head, they're able to redraw the whole entire thing in exact detail. I'm
I've
like,
seen that guy. It's beautiful.
what? Like, where we can find a better place? Have them do our taxes. I bet you $20 they know more than I do when it comes to that type of stuff. I know.
You get a bigger return,
Yeah,
save
exactly. It's like
more. Yep.
you just gave me 10 grand. It's like I couldn't even do that. I was about to owe money. And it's like, well, you see, like Rain Man with numbers.
Yep. Yep. He's like, well, there's just this one clause right here that you missed. You know, that'd be awesome. I'm feeling that way because I have a special needs daughter and she's almost 5, and boy, I mean, there are sometimes that she is just, whew, like there's nothing there. But then there are other times when she's so whip smart. Like her speech is so good, but held back a little bit. Boy, she can sling around some cuss words like a sailor. She knows how to use them and all the inflection and everything. It's part of her Soto syndrome. It makes them surly. It makes them have a um, ex, um, I'm trying to think, sped up growth, and then they also have loose nerves, and so they have a hard time in life. And I think she's doing pretty good because, like, I've seen some of the kids that have Soto syndrome, and like comparatively, she looks wonderful. And some of these kids are it's really hard to look at, and
Well, how do they have a way to manage that now? Like, because see, for everybody, I think the giant place we want to put research money into is like space and all these things. But I want to find a way to be able to help a lot of this, like situations. Like I took psychology and I studied plenty of cases about people that were suffering from schizophrenia. Read a case about a 12-year-old that tried to set his whole family and his house on fire because he thought King Tut, like the Egyptian King Tut, was outside of his house, like trying to kill him. So it made
wild.
me wonder, like the longest time electroconvulsive therapy was the only thing to solve schizophrenia, because it would shock your nerve endings when impulses of things that would have to be with schizophrenia would arise. So if, as soon as you start experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia, like, oh, here comes the brain getting triggered again, they would do this and it would shock you, and it would, your
Mhm.
body would naturally get programmed to not let those things happen. And I'm like, it just came up. I'll reference another episode. I was listening to the new Joe Rogan with Jim Brewer, and he was talking about how his friend was like brain dead. Basically, parts of his brain were just dead.
Mhm.
And his wife started taking him to Metallica concerts because that's what he wanted to do, because he was getting super depressed. And the Metallica family, which is like the band has such a loyal following that if you even
Mhm.
wear a Metallica shirt, if you go to their concerts, they treat you just like your family to them. So they were all going around him because he's in a wheelchair and everything, can't walk. And they're like all like helping him out, getting him to the front row and everything. And the doctors were like checking out his brain, and parts of his brain were healing and coming back. And it wasn't from the power of music, but the community, the positive effect of things. And it goes to a bigger example. My great grandfather died not shortly after my great grandmother passed, and it was like they say he died of heartbreak, and I was like, what is that? What is that emotional energy, that connection, that positivity that gives people a fighting shot? And it was you've heard of a placebo effect, right?
Mhm.
Did you know there's a
Certainly.
did you know there's a thing called nocebo effect?
Isn't that where you don't take anything at all, but then you feel the effects still?
It's like they started finding this in autopsies. Someone had been diagnosed with cancer, a terminal illness, and it
Mhm.
turns out that the cancer was actually benign, which they found in the autopsy. But when you give someone a deathly diagnosis of that, their body starts to give up. Like their heart rate started changing, their brain
Oh,
started
wow.
experiencing symptoms of cancer, which they didn't have any cancer, all from a misdiagnosis, which is like the power of the human mind, man. Like I used to laugh at like Doctor Strange when they're like, "Oh, if you just drink a bunch of green tea, your cancer will go away." And I'm like, that sounds like such bullshit. But if you believe it enough, it possibly could have some positive effects onto your body. Maybe your fatigue
Definitely.
might go away.
They work with young kids with cancer, and they have them draw pictures of superheroes and knights fighting off villains, this villainous cancer, and they have them do that as a creative exercise, and they say that in a bunch of the cases, like it really helps. I don't know if it per se takes away the cancers completely, but slows the growth, I'll bet. And it's the power of positive thinking. And you can do that with a group as well, where when people say, we're all sending out prayers and stuff, I do feel like I'm not a religious person, but I feel like that energy that everybody puts out is beneficial to you.
Yeah, I'm not a religious person either. That's why I really support that aspect of things, is like the community and the faith reasoning to it. There's just like
Mhm.
believing that there's a higher power out there that's making like he's watching over you. It gives people a sense of comfort that tech might really need it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that those people know less than me or not of higher intelligence. No, it's just, but having faith, and even if you believe in the fucking Bigfoot, man, like there is that sense of like there's something about just that belief aspect of things. I think that's like when you start to get ruined as a person is when like Santa Claus isn't real, then you find out the Easter bunny isn't
Yeah.
real, then next thing you know the tooth fairy's not real, and you're like, shit, you're thrown in this loophole of now everything that you held so high on a pedestal and believed in has now been just reduced to being fake. And that's where I'm like seeing people go like, well, this is why religion isn't this and this is, I'm like, stop, 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 stop. You've lost the battle because you're trying to start a war. And it's like that doesn't solve anything. You're shooting somebody in the foot. Let's dive down this research hole of positivity. And I feel like that's a lot with what's going on today. And I know past couple episodes of mine's been talking about politics in the world and stuff, but it's serious when it comes to the aspect of everything we're seeing is pretty fucking bad and we need to start seeing some positive things. Like they have all, and it's crazy because I asked you, what do you want to be, a game show person or do you want to be a famous voice sex operator? There's fucking people that are VR Twitch streamers that are trending on Twitter. People like, oh, they canceled him. Oh, he's going. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Dave Dorbick, whatever the dick's name is or whatever, is being charged with sexual assault charges. And I'm like, what is like
Scary.
were they put, did they Epstein him? Did they like, we're gonna make you famous YouTuber, all these stupid vlogs you create, but then you're gonna get a sexual allegation when you go against us. And then next thing you know, and it's just so fascinating because I started diving down that rabbit hole last night. I was learning all about these
True.
Twitch streamers, all these court allegations, all these things that are going on, and it's all just like conflict. And they're like, well, we're all trying to produce content. It's what we're doing. So this is why we're creating these videos and we're talking about it
Yeah,
because
and
it's
when you're
content.
sitting there and talking talking for hours while you're playing a video game, just talking about whatever comes to mind or what people are talking about in the chats and stuff. It's really easy to slip up and say something that someone is going to take offense to. Because you could just be playing along and just call somebody something, whoops, oh, didn't mean to say that. But at the time you're in the middle of a stream and you're not even thinking about it, and then one person watches that and goes, I am so offended by that. I believe that he said that F slur just ruined my day. And then you have all this problem and they try to cancel you.
Well, it's like there's going to be a pushback. I've been calling it for like a past couple of episodes now. I've been saying there's going to be a giant
I
pushback.
cannot wait.
It's
I
fun.
can't wait until everybody just minds their own effing business again. I am so ready for that time to swing back around, because right now everybody is in everyone's business and it's the most annoying thing. Everybody feels like they have to have a say. Everybody has to be a special snowflake. Everybody gets a participation award. We need to go back to being individuals again and minding our own business. Help people that need it, but mind your own business and stay out of what everybody's saying and doing.
It's funny is in a podcast episode, I think it was episode 703. Me and this guy were talking about cancel culture, how it's like not gonna do all this, and it's just back and forth, kind of like a little bit like he lost his bets. The first one was that like nobody just says anything without any meaning to it, and I pulled up like 20 or 200 tweets of Pepsi being
Oh, I've
racist.
got 50 podcasts like that. No
But
worries.
but it's funny because then Coke 2 weeks after that episode got released put out that thing about how to be less white, and then he was like, all right, you won that bet, so I'll eat a hat. And then the clam chowder bet was a bet about this guy Army Hammer who wanted to eat his girlfriend's ribs, and we were talking about, he goes, yeah, but he's not canceled, he's never not going to work again. And now yesterday trending on Twitter is this big thing about now he's being sued for all these allegations and stuff, and it's going really really deep down harassment and stuff. And I'm like, so now you got to eat chowder too. And it's just like, what am I like? I talked about this a year and a half ago. China's social economic credit system, which is if you snitch on your neighbor, you get tax money, you get all these, you get a break, you get to have better credit score by snitching on your neighbor who's not
We're
following the
doing it
rules
for
of.
free here.
That's what I'm saying is
For free.
I
Nobody's even getting paid for that shit.
I talked about that a year ago, and now it's becoming like a main thing now. And I'm like, is it what, Mr. Rogers? Somebody please just Google that rabbit hole. His birthday was the other day, and I'm like, I am cringing at all these people that are like, he's such a great man. I was like, he only gave a fuck about his own neighborhood, nobody else's. He didn't care what happened in the other neighborhoods.
Poor Mr. Rogers. I did grow up watching a lot of Mr. Rogers, though.
If anybody knows his wife or his wife is listening, please
Then
reach out.
again, I grew up watching a lot of Cosby Show. So what can I say?
What's wrong with Cosby? What's wrong with Cosby?
Zip zop doodly bop. Nothing. He's wonderful. He was such a good man, just filled with the milk of human kindness.
Yep. And he liked to spread that milk around a little bit too much. I think so.
I think that milk was what was controlling him.
And milk
You're
had a,
supposed to get rid of that before your date.
but think about it. Like the human mind, I want to know what makes it tick for some people, why it's different for others, why certain things are a certain way. Like the idea of CRISPR is very, very scary, but the idea of being able to fix complications that might affect a person's well-being or a person's factor of life. Like I don't think anybody wants to be like, yeah, I mean, my kid's handicapped, but he's going to be born that way and it's okay because he'll
Yeah.
get used to it. I don't know anybody that would want that on their child or anybody that would want, I wouldn't want that on another human being to be paralyzed. But
Oh yeah, I think about that a lot. Like if they could have checked before we had my daughter, and if they said, hey, we're noticing that he's got these two major genetic anomalies, what do we think we should do from this? That might have made the situation way harder. But I feel at the same time, when you go in on a baby, you get what you get. It's like the mystery machine of life, and you could get a really good one or you could get an asshole one. It's just the way it goes.
What made you decide you were ready? What was the conception like? Like I tried to track like what was happening when I was born. I was like, let's see, if I was born in December, that means I had to be born right around here. I was like, what's St. Patrick's Day? Did you guys was that influenced at all? And they just looked at me like, what? And I'm like, St. Patrick's Day, was that a heavily maybe a day you were got a little I don't know, had a fun night? I don't know. I'm just trying
Well,
to figure
this is
out.
my fourth kid. One step, but fourth in the line. I have a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, and then I have my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old. As far as it goes, the 7-year-old was conceived on a coast vacation when we were just having a great time. And I kind of was thinking that Jamie was eating some weird stuff, and I was like, "This is strange. She's a very like rigid person when it comes to her diet, and all of a sudden she's eating this weird stuff." It took me forever. I had to talk to her for weeks about it. Like, I really think that something's different, and she's like, "No, no." And sure enough, nope, she was pregnant. And then with Amelia, uh, with my youngest, it was she had told me one day that we were thinking about having another one, and then just one time, boom, one one time.
Is there any events like what would you say like is there like cuz for instance my buddy's uncle was born like I think around the time JFK was shot. So I was like I guess that's how your grandfather processed grief, which was like our president got shot in the head, so might as well have
There
another
you
kid,
go.
you know what I mean?
There you go. Nope, I think I'd have to say that the second one was just a little bit more of an accident than we had decided that it would be okay if it happened, but we totally didn't expect it so soon.
I want to know like cuz people have these rituals like if you do this then it'll be a girl, if you do this it'll be a guy. I'm like are there cuz I don't know if I could raise a girl. It might be cool to have like a couple of girls, but I feel like
No,
nah,
it's not
boys.
cool.
Boys.
No, I'll tell you, I've had 3 boys and 1 girl, and she is not even 5 yet, and she's already got me wrapped around her finger. I will do anything for that child, anything. I will stand in front of her and take many bullets, and I feel so much more protective of her, and I don't even know how I'm gonna handle it when she gets a little bit older and starts hanging out with boys and stuff. I am gonna be like psycho dad, like brimming under the surface, like, don't you dare, don't you dare.
But you don't want to do that because then you might intimidate or scare off a good person like myself. Like for me, my biggest fear was always meeting my ex's parents because it was like I know that's a big step, but it was like always like the intimidation of what you see off movies where the grandpa's
True.
cleaning or dad's cleaning a
My
shotgun.
dad
Like,
used to do that. My dad would walk into my sister's room while she had her little boyfriends over, and he'd be like, "Look at this new machete I got. It's really good. I even made sure it's super sharp." He's like slicing it in the air in front of him and stuff, and they're like, "Whoa!"
why can't we just
Yeah,
like play Uno and then that's when you decide if I'm a man or not, if I win or lose.
I'm a nice guy. I did see this really funny video the other day though, where this boyfriend is picking up his girlfriend, and he's meeting the father for the first time, and the father says, "I want to make sure that you're home by 10 o'clock tonight." And the kid says, "Oh, well, what are you going to do about it?" And then like the screen goes black, and you see like eyes opening, and you see like you're looking up from the floor at the father, and he's like, "Oh, hey there, son. Hey there. I don't know if you heard me. You seem to fall down really quickly, and you hit yourself real hard." He's like, "Now let me tell you something about my daughter." Goes into how you got to respect the father.
I
Thought
like
that was so good.
I think that even extends like I'm afraid of my friends' parents when I first go over there and meet them, and then I just get used to it, I guess. I guess it's like probably something therapeutically wrong with me. There's probably something in my personality in my head that's like, you'll never accept love. I'm like, oh, okay. That's probably true. But it's so crazy because I remember how many times like used to go over to my buddy's house where I was like living over there like for a whole entire summer where my dad would call me and be like, do you need anything? Like you've been over there for like 2 months. I haven't seen you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then like my buddy's dad just comes downstairs. He's in his underwear and he's like, look, I we got to teach you how to use the shower, bud. And I'm like, I've been here that long. They're like, yeah, man, like it's time to start learning. Like if you're basically living here, like, do your parents know where you are? I'm like, I'm pretty sure my dad keeps dropping me off $20 every Saturday. So like I guess I'm surviving. But it's like, I don't know. how the brain works and like the way mine works is always so much different than everybody else's, where I'm like, it's not in a good way. I think of it more as in a bad way. It's just like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have,
mine doesn't help me in social situations either.
well, the
I don't look
insomnia
at
thing.
people in the eye, and I think that I actually have just a little teeny bit of autism, and I think that I've passed it on to my kids. I didn't know about it until
Fuck,
we started
man.
studying autism, but like I'm super musically inclined. I have these like super genius thoughts, but I can never get everything out, like like Rain Man style.
Give me a super
And
genius thought. Hold on. Give me a super genius thought.
that's the thing, is I can't get it out. Like I can do math problems. Like my kid will just throw stuff at me, 5 times 3 plus 6 times 8 plus 15 minus 25. And I just
Okay,
give him an answer.
22 times 8.
Uh, oh, see, you put me on the spot. See, now I feel all nervous and it's not working.
You could have said
But
anything, I would have accepted it because I don't know.
like, oh, 146. No, I don't know for sure. I probably could. I just I'm speaking. It's hard to come up with math problems, but yeah, just stuff like that. I don't look at people in the eye when they talk to me and stuff, and that's a big sign. I've always been super awkward in social situations and stuff. It's really hard for me to meet new people. And yeah, we went through this whole autism thing because we think that Amelia is autistic. We thought that she had ADHD, but now we're coming to see that it's autism. It's the two are really similar with their traits and stuff. And so we're coming to see. We almost put her on ADHD medication, and then one of our service workers said, "Do you think that she might?" Be autistic instead. And then we started looking into that, and we were like, wow, you've just opened up a whole new thing. And so then I started doing the test and stuff as well. And I was like, wow, I'm a little autistic too. Crazy.
I
Who would
just
have
have
known?
I just have experiments I want to start doing, not like in a test lab or anything where I'm picking someone's brain open and like brain surgery or something. No, more like I have ADHD, but throughout, like in the beginning, like back before ADHD was as known as it is now, which is funny because they're diagnosing it like it's fucking candy at a parade. They're just
Oh,
tossing it out.
every kid has ADHD anymore.
No, that's not what it is. It's called being locked inside your house for 9 months. You're going to be
For
pretty,
sure. It's called being an active kid.
yeah. So
You don't want to be in school all day long. That's why you're staring out the window.
I actually had an episode on my podcast where I think like the first like 30 or so, I was explaining this room that this school that I went to when I was in elementary school called Shao. They put me in this one room where it was just white walls and a square window in the door. And this is before the age of cell phones, so I couldn't be on my phone and play games. I had a piece of paper and a pencil sitting in front of me, and they thought I was mentally challenged because I just couldn't sit still. I was always sharpening my pencil. I was always making a disruption thing in the class. And I was explaining this room in detail. And this kid that I had on, Jared, he starts finishing describing the room for me. And I'm like, I got started getting goosebumps. I was like, how do you know that? And he goes, because they put my brother in that room. And the person I had been describing when I was leaving that school, the kid that actually was mentally challenged, that was being put in that room and banging his head up
Mhm.
against the wall, that was his brother. So it was like this holy shit. And then we started diving into it because that always fascinated me, because I was always put in the class with all the bad kids, or I was put in the class with some
Yeah.
mentally challenged kids. And they're like, Rob, why
That
don't you?
was that's the special ed version of solitary is what that is.
Yeah, and I was just like,
Mhm.
why am I in here? And they're like, I don't know, man. Like, you can't sit still, so they just don't want you in the class
Mhm.
disrupting. And I'm like, but I'm not
I did
meant
it
to.
too.
But
Tons of detentions.
it freaked me out because when I tried to get a potential guest for my podcast, she was talking about how ADHD is as a learning disability, is a mentally challenged thing. And I was like, that's no. Autism and then ADHD are not the same thing. And she was like, don't tell me my daughter has ADHD. I'm like, I have fucking ADHD. But then I started questioning, maybe I'm retarded and they're not telling me. And I started freaking the fuck out. And I went down this, like, I don't know who I am. Where am I? All these things. Cause I was like, imagine if I feel like I'm doing perfectly good sentences or manageable ones as I'm talking to you right now. But then also you're hearing and like all these random noises and shit. And I could just be thinking, hey,
That's
I'm good at conversation, but not really because
that's right,
I'm.
Robbie. We're all patronizing you. Did you know that, Robbie? You're like just wailing and ranting, and we're like, that's right, Robbie. That's right. We totally understand what you're saying.
That's
Oh, you're
100% the
talking.
answer.
And you just follow whatever the last sentence was. My butt. Oh, we want to talk about butts. Okay, cool. We'll go into the pooping section.
But it's the same thing as the nocebo effect. If you can convince somebody so much that they're insane or they're not making any sense or they're
Gaslighting.
wrong, after a while, they're going to think that they are insane. If you literally paid everybody $1,000 around you to say that everything you said didn't make sense, always repeat yourself, always do all these things that make you always be like, okay, let me say it again for you. Always making you repeat yourself, making you seem batshit insane. Eventually, you're going to start questioning your own sanity. And I'm like, I see that a lot now just with stupid social media where 1,000 people think one, like when I was getting into the vloggers or whatever, the Dave Dorbeck or whatever, when I didn't know anything, but I just saw a podcast they did last night and I was like, well, let me watch it. It's like, and I put a comment. I was like, this is like watching the Death Star blow up without seeing any of the Star Wars movies. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. And everyone's like telling me their own perspective of it and all this stuff. And I'm like, yo, like, I don't know anything about this realm. You could convince me and I wouldn't be able to tell you if this was right or wrong.
True that.
It's what I'm saying is the fact of what can somebody do? What can somebody say that can make a person question their own sanity? Is something like I don't consider physical pain like worse torture than mental pain, like pain that you can make someone psychologically guess themselves in every statement that they make. And I believe that people are doing that now. What did you want to do when you were 10 years old, when you were 15 years old, when you were 20? It's always changing. And it's not
Hmm.
because you're becoming adult or you're growing up. It's because everything in life is showing you things to fall into a system rather than chase after a dream. Who's
Yeah, that's
stopping
true. And
Jason from
the
about s-
people around you tell you that you can't do that stuff. Like when I was 10, I wanted to be a ninja. I remember just running around with, kendo sticks and
you were that
kicking the
guy.
shit out of my bushes in the backyard. I always had a headband on, and when I wasn't doing that, I was like lifting weights in the garage and getting my swell on and, listening to hard rock, from the 70s while I do it just to get pumped. And yeah, and I wanted to be a ninja so bad. But then, like, I figured, I'm not that good. So by about 15, I was like, all right, forget the ninja. I like this rock stuff. I'm just going to be a rock star. And, everybody that I talked to was like, you can't be a rock star. You'll never make it. You'll just be a so-so. And then you'll have to go get a job like everyone else. And they squashed my dreams of being a rock star. And then by 20, I had just given up and I was working at McDonald's. So, like, seriously, fuck them.
Wait, you were how old are you right now?
I'm 40, just turned 43.
So when you were in your 20s working at McDonald's, was that around the era of Pokemon cards and Neopets being put into McDonald's toys?
I think those were a little teeny bit after that.
Did you still work at
Um,
McDonald's when it was happening?
yeah, unfortunately, I did work at McDonald's for a really long time. I
I
did a
don't
good
consider
like
that
four
bad when
year,
Neopets
I did a
when
good
Neopets hit
4 year
it.
stint, and then I did 3 years or 4 year stint at Taco Bell, and then I did a 2 or 3 year stint at Wendy's, and then I did another like 4 year stint at McDonald's. Like, if I ever need anything to go back on, I could always just go and be management at a restaurant.
Which did you prefer out of McDonald's, Wendy's, and Taco Bell?
Um, McDonald's was the best tasting, but the most garbage food. Wendy's was the best food, but not always the best tasting. And Taco Bell was just good all the time because I was always high. And so we would work all night long and you could just make whatever food you wanted. They're like, if you want something, you just grab a tostada while you're on the line, throw some stuff on it and eat it. Grab yourself a shell, throw some stuff in it and eat it. Like you could do it all night long. It was awesome.
I've never
The
had
best.
Wendy's before, so I can't, I guess,
Oh
say.
yeah, I heard about your Wendy's predicament. Man, that is so sad. Wendy's is quality. I do like Wendy's burgers because they use the never frozen beef, which actually makes the burger taste a lot better. But Everything else is so. Like I would go Wendy's beef with Carl's Jr.'s buns and toppings, and I think that would be better.
Do you mean Hardee's?
Well, it would be Hardee's for you, Hardy Har.
How did they
Yes,
how did they
Carl's
change
Jr.
our
here.
mind on that? How did they make it like, oh, if you're from this area of this, if you're part of this part of the hemisphere, it's going to be Carl's Jr. But if you're in this
But
hemisphere, it's going to be Hardee's.
so I have a question then. What did they call the big Carl then?
What?
You don't have the big Carl?
I've never been to Hardee's.
Oh, I see. I wonder if they call it the big Hardy or something at Hardy's. And
I've never been to Sonic. I've never been to Hardee's. I've never been to Bob Evans.
the
I've never
Sonic,
Roy Rogers. I've never done any of that. I don't want somebody roller skating out with food for me.
they got some. Like, it's rad. They're usually pretty hot chicks.
I don't know, man. If
Nothing
you
wrong
see
there.
that's what they say. Like when you go, oh, the only place I've ever seen hot fast food workers is Starbucks and I consider Starbucks fast food because they're always trying to sell you some type of pastry and a Michael Jackson CD.
Always.
Always.
Yeah.
Um, and then Chick-fil-A. There's the only people I don't know if it's the uniform is why I find them attractive because my ex worked there. But when she took the uniform off, I was like, don't know if I feel the same way anymore.
See, you got me there on Chick-fil-A though, because I haven't been to Chick-fil-A since I was 11 or 12 years old. We have one by us, but it is so busy that I just never go.
I got it when I was 50. Or no, we got a Chick-fil-A when I was 16 years old. When was Chick-fil-A invented?
Oh, Chick-fil-A's been out for a long time.
Well,
But
that's
you know,
fucking news to me.
they're all religious and they're anti-gay. And so I'm like, to hell with you, Chick-fil-A. I'll go elsewhere.
I
All
bet
right. No,
you
maybe
though,
it's just because the lines are really long and I don't want to sit through the line.
that's probably why they do really good business is that they have one day a week that they will not serve you. Like that's predictive programming into your head.
Yeah, they did that with the liquor stores here in Oregon for a long time too. OLCC runs all the liquor stores. They're like a booze mafia basically. They run all the pot shops now too. Yeah, make tons of money off of it. And yeah, for a long time you couldn't get booze in Oregon on Sunday. They repealed that a few years back, but it was like people wanted it so much more because you couldn't go on Sunday and get booze.
This is why I can understand where people say we might be in a simulation because like there's just random things in the world where you're like, why is that right next to that? Well, you see, they built that liquor store right there, and then they built the Taco Bell across the street because a lot of the times, from people leaving the bars or a liquor store, they go over and they get tacos. It's kind of like a win-win for each business. And I'm
Mhm.
like, they're fucking programming us in ways to spend more money. And I'm like, this is insane. Like you
Yeah.
put
Oh yeah, you walk out of one business and straight into the next one.
that's so
It's like a mall.
evil. That is so
That's
evil
why
to
they do the
me.
malls the way they do. You got your jewelry hut here, you got your hot topic there, you got your food court here. You just go to place to place to place to place and spend all your cash.
Then explain the fucking cell phone stand that's in the middle of the mall where the guy's like, want to buy a
Oh, nobody
Nokia? I'm
goes to
like, the
those.
fucking nobody wants a
Nobody
Nokia.
goes to those, or the guys with the floating balls and stuff. Ooh, look at this. It's like, yeah, we see it. Good for you.
People go to the mall for three reasons. One, they want to get a soft pretzel. Two, they want to eat at a really bad food place that's going to fill them up for a cheap price. Or three,
True.
actually, I'll add four. Three is going to be that there's the massage tables, the person randomly massaging for free with a cardboard sign in the middle of the mall. People always do that. And then four would be GameStop because that's where everyone goes when they go to a mall. It's like, oh, they got a GameStop. Let me go in here and pick a game for $80 that I'll play
Listen,
once.
stop. I don't do the massage thing though. Like I consider it sometimes, but I don't really like people touching me, especially people I don't know. And just I see these people getting massages and I'm like, that is like way more open than I can get. Maybe it's that autistic thing, but I am not a big fan of people touching me.
I'm not a big fan of people hugging me, but I'm a big fan of like a fist bump or a handshake. Like my little nephew was over for dinner
Mm.
and he's like, I think what did she say? I think she said 50, no, not 53, 33 months or something like that. They always say months. I'm like, just say the fucking years.
Right. Just a year and a half, whatever. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it
Well,
was when
33 months is a little 2 and almost 3 years.
it was like when I was a kid, my dad was like, well, it's 15 minutes past 4. And I'm like, what is that? Like 3:55? And he's like, what? Like, just tell me the fucking time, man. He goes, no, you got to figure it out, man. I'm like, are you serious? You know how much easier this would be if you just told me the exact time? He goes, you know how
Oh,
easy it would be
176,
if
by
you,
the way.
well, he would go, you know how, wait, what?
That was that number from earlier. 176. It just popped into my head.
Yeah, you might have a slight form of autism there, buddy.
I told you.
but,
I wasn't even thinking about it. It just went boo.
it was funny because my dad was like, why don't like you just try and figure it out? And I'm like, well, why don't you just tell me we're wasting too much time? And he goes, or you could waste less time by just looking at the fucking clock right there. And I'm like,
True.
good man,
Got
you
you
got
there.
me. You got me. Damn, that 176 really threw me off.
I'm sorry. It was just like bing.
I'm trying to think
Yeah,
now.
that's my weird brain.
Yeah, see, because I was trying to high five my nephew, and he would be like, no, thank you. And I'm like, high five me.
Hmm.
This is what we're going to do. We're going to high five, and you're going to
It's
high
the
five me.
connection.
And then
We need the connection.
my buddies, or not my buddy, my brother's fiance was like, he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. And I was like, that's not how this goes. That's not how this goes at all. When I was a kid, I sat at the dinner table until all my food was done. He's going to fucking
Hmm.
high five me before he leaves this house. And she was like, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm like, what are you doing? I get it if it's like, oh, cool. You don't ever want to make them feel conflicted, but it's a high five. It's 2 seconds of their time. He's not going to divulge into, it's not a gateway to smoking crack.
You're not even gonna pull it away and say "too slow, Joe," or something.
I
So
was going
whatever.
to. I was gonna fucking rip it out. But then he ended up high
Yeah.
fiving me later when we were playing. Like we built a puzzle together, which was so like
See.
it was so crazy because I was talking to him. I was like, I did this with my grandma. And it was like this whole like, oh my God, now I'm doing a puzzle with him. And like I see him rarely. Like I don't really see him a lot just because he lived like me and my brother were at the age doing our own thing and stuff like that. But he goes, Uncle Wobby. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's not my name. Name is, and then now it's a big thing where he wants to keep calling me Uncle Wobby. I'm like, you sound like you're from like Korea, where your R's are L's.
You sound like a Nickelodeon cartoon. Hello, this is Uncle Wappy.
Like a Pee Wee's
Hello,
Playhouse.
kids. Uncle Wappy in the house.
But you really kind of start to look at it, and you're just like, it's
He
just
needed that connection.
it's
Before he could give you your connection, he
yeah.
needed that connection.
But it's just fascinating because to see like him growing up compared to when I was growing up, and it's like what are future generations going to grow up in? And I always like asking someone who has a kid, and I'm just like, what is like, are we going to be able to like try and find ways? Because like with a lot of problems that are going on inside a kid's head nowadays that weren't there before from the amount of exposure to things, I'm like, there's got to be a therapy. There's got to be a way to fix it. I remember
Mhm.
reading an article like 3 or 4 years ago about trying to help kids with ADHD in schooling by giving them a form of meditation for an hour, like a class of meditation. Please try, like
Yeah,
kids with
it's better
ADHD.
than doping them all up.
Well, kids that aren't paying attention in school are starting to realize that the school is not teaching them things that are going to make them a functional person in society, which I think
Hmm.
eventually at one point we all fucking figure out that you're not going to really need to know Pythagorean's theorem. You rather know how to try and build up a credit score, or yeah, instead of
Yep.
maybe learning if train A is going to station B at 45 miles per hour, how long until he gets there. Well, maybe instead of that, we teach a kid, hey, this is what's called insurance. This is what is called a home equity loan. This is like
Indeed.
teach
Indeed.
them that
Here's
shit.
how you balance your checkbook, children. Yeah. Here's how you don't fall into credit card debt, children. Here's how you finance your first home. That's what the stuff we need to teach our kids. We need to teach our kids how to make enough money to survive in this world with as expensive as everything is getting. You were saying that the millennials are staying at home until their 30s on one of your previous episodes. And it's true because, yeah, like everything costs so much now. Like, how can you afford that? Just 10 years ago, I was paying $600 a month for rent for a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Now I'm in a 2 bedroom, 2 bath, and I'm paying almost 1,500.
I just want to say two things. One, I love you for listening to one of my past episodes.
Oh,
And,
I've listened to all of them. I've
and
listened to the last 200 and something episodes.
you gave up on trying to catch up on them all.
No, I caught up.
But
I've been listening to it since like a little bit before my episode, like a year ago, and I've gone all the way from like 10 episodes before mine all the way through to now.
Okay, then you are probably the best person I can ask this to. If you have something or one or two things that you've heard me say on a podcast episode that either you don't agree with or you have a question about, what would it be?
Hmm. I don't agree with your mayonnaise thing. I really like mayonnaise.
That's fucking. I'll die on that hill. That's a hill
That's
I'll
one of
die
them
on, and the
because
Nutella
like
one.
you were talking about mayonnaise and I was like, you know how I do it? I take my two pieces of bread and I just throw that knife in the mayonnaise and I do this like quarter-inch thick zoop across one bread. Then
Ugh.
I do a zoop across the other bread, same thickness. Then you put the meat and cheeses and everything in there, and that the mayonnaise is like your sandwich lubricant.
My
It just
stomach
goes
just
on down.
nodded like really. You know what's funny is I can only eat mayo if it comes from one place, and that is on a McChicken at McDonald's. I don't,
There we go.
I just don't
McDonald's
taste it.
mayo is a little bit different. It has a little bit different flavor to it. Like I don't think that you can buy that on the market.
Well, they sell
I think they
Chick-fil-A
have their
sauce
own
now.
special mayo. I can make my own Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yeah, but now they
I
sell
just
it in a
found out.
bottle.
Oh, well, maybe
Like
I'll try that. It's
it's a
easier than mixing the two.
it's a giant ketchup bottle and it's $8. And I bet you I was like, that's a high price, but people are gonna buy it. They have Polynesian sauce too bottled up.
Maybe. Yeah. And then people wouldn't have to go to Chick-fil-A. Well, I guess they'd be buying from Chick-fil-A though still. What a conundrum.
Soon they're gonna start
I'll just go to
selling
Popeyes instead.
they're gonna start selling Arby's curly fries in freezer bags.
They already do. I got some in my freezer right now.
What?
Yeah, Arby's curly fries.
I don't want to
Yeah, with
live
a
on
little
this
sweet
planet
baby
anymore.
Ray's barbecue sauce. Oh, those are the bomb.
I don't
Whew.
not a giant fan of barbecue sauce.
Mwah, chef's kiss.
What would you consider an elegant like if I could choose I don't know if you know my heaven meal, but my heaven meal is is a milkshake at a diner. I don't really need
Mhm.
food with it, just a milkshake, a nice classic milkshake. What would your heaven meal be?
Real ice cream milkshake. My heaven meal? It'd be some nice thick, really seasoned steak fries, and then a really good, juicy, medium well half-pound burger on a real big brioche bun with all the fixins. That sounds amazing.
See,
And then with it, because I haven't
my
drank it in so long, I'd go with a nice icy Pepsi because it's been so long since I've had a nice crisp cold Pepsi. I bet that'd be super refreshing.
my heaven meal I see if it's gonna be heaven, it's gotta have some type of realistic quality to it. So I'm like, if you're eating all that, it might be like you can have whatever food you want, but you're gonna feel what it feels like after you get done eating it. So you're gonna be in heaven, like, sorry, I can't join you on the floating cloud of interdimensional space travel because I'm sitting here digesting this giant burger I just ate.
Well, you just float on the cloud and digest. It's all good. They'll assist you. Yeah, that would be the bomb, I think. Gosh, it's been years since I've had a soda. It's crazy. The closest I get is energy drinks, and I even go the no sugar on those. So it's been forever since I've had an actual sugar soda.
I'm about to say I haven't had
That'd be
sugar
intense.
soda in probably like 10, 15 years, but I've had the diet ones because I don't like, I didn't know the distinguished taste between Coke and Pepsi until I was in my 20s. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think people drink it like, yeah, you can drink energy drinks for the taste, but do people really pay attention a lot to the taste of drinks? You know, when they say, do you want Pepsi or Coke? And you're like, well, which one do you have? It's like, well, we have Pepsi products. And it's like, people still take the Pepsi as long as it's a dark liquid
Yeah,
and gives them that seltzer or whatever in their stomach. They drink it anyway.
pretty much. It's that big intake of sugar that their body loves, especially if you're used to drinking soda. It doesn't even matter what kind of soda it is. You take that big intake of sugar, the body goes, oh, yum yum yum, sugar. That was what I wanted. And like when I was drinking soda hardcore, I could go get a Mountain Dew Code Red the first day. I could go get a Dr Pepper the next day. I could go get a Pepsi the next day. I could do a Coke after that. It was getting that big slam of sugar in your system.
Do you think, because like bring it back to what we were talking about before about kind of understanding like the nocebo effect and all that, do you think that maybe organs have like a mind of their own or they're on like a separate system, considering
Oh,
that
for
like,
sure.
well, let's look at like artificial flavors, for instance. Like it's giving they say it's worse for you because it's telling your body that you're actually ingesting the sugars, but it's not true sugar, so it's artificial. So then it's tricking your brain into thinking that. I'm like, so you're tricking your brain. How many tricks? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? How many tricks does it take until your brain fucking snaps?
Yeah, true. I've thought about that, especially with the fake sugar that tastes so much like real sugar now. That I've heard that your body goes into the same response, like it's getting ready to dissolve this sugar, and then there's no sugar there for it to dissolve, and it gives you a big insulin dump because of it. But I haven't read enough into the theory yet to really get behind it.
I found out what I'm going to do with my stimulus money.
You're
I'm
gonna study that, huh?
No, I'm gonna
Gonna
pay a
find you a
bunch of people.
scientist.
I'm gonna pay a bunch of people around you to act like you're every word you say they can't hear you. So you're like, am I talking and no sounds coming out?
That's that reminds me of a cruel joke that we used to play on this poor guy that had hearing aids at our school. We'd all be in the bathroom, and he'd walk in the bathroom, and we would all start talking, but without talking, just moving our mouth. And then he would think like something was up, so he would turn his hearing aid up, and then we'd be like, "What's up, buddy? How you doing?" And then he'd be like, "Ah!" we were so fucking mean.
It's mean, but I find that really like that's a practical joke. That can't be hate or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably not super nice, but at the same time, kids are going to be cruel, and if that's the cruelest that I ever went, then I feel like I wasn't too bad.
See, I
I'll
just
still
don't.
make it into heaven, right?
I
Right?
think so. Yeah, you'll be okay. I like that better than like if you look at like some people like they talk to a handicapped person or they talk to a blind person like they're a child. Like, oh, can I help you, little buddy? And it's like my fucking legs are broke, not my fucking mind. Like I'm okay. I'm functional. I'm pretty
For
intelligent.
sure. For sure. It's hard. It's hard to not patronize. It took me several years when I worked in customer service and stuff. Like people would come up, and it's so hard not to gawk. Like the first time someone walks up and they've got like half of their face or something, it's so hard not to just be like, oh, Jesus Christ, like half of your faces. How do you do that? But they've been dealing with it for a long time, so I always was just like curious, and I would always like ask them respectfully, like hey, like I just gotta know, like I'm not trying to bug you or anything, but I just gotta know how that happened, and then they'd usually they'd have a great story for it.
There was a kid I actually sent an article to recently, but he ended up getting it fixed probably when we got out of high school. But the bottom part of his lip was down like this. So he looked
Mhm.
like his face was like this 24/7. And people used to make fun of that so fucking much. And I'm like, about like, I remember one time I asked him about it. I was like, does that ever get like hard, like if you're eating or chewing? And he's like, just snapped on me. And I'm like, I was asking
Mhm.
a legit question. He was like, you understand every day somebody asked me about this. And I'm like,
For
I
sure.
can relate to it now with my intestinal issue. Every
Mhm.
single person that finds out about it or wants to talk about it, they're like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? I'm like, no fuck. Have I tried changing what I eat? No shit. And it's just like, I get it. And then like seeing that, it makes me wonder. I'm like, would you want to fix that
Indeed.
or do you want to
And that could be
embrace
just
that?
he had one tight tendon or something that
Yeah.
was just kind of holding his mouth down. So something that was probably a pretty easy fix, but at the same time, I'm sure gave him a lot of problems.
And
I'm sure that's why he snapped. It was just, I'm sure it was frustrating.
I mean, I was born with a lazy eye, but you couldn't tell by looking at
Hmm.
me now that I have a lazy eye. It's gone. Because
Yep.
when I was a baby, the doctor when I was born saw it, and my dad said the doctor took his finger and just pushed the eye back. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? Like, how does that
That
happen?
doesn't sound legal.
he goes he goes, I don't know what happened. It was I couldn't even think, I couldn't even say anything. It was just as soon as you were born, there's one eye that was wandering over here, and the doctor just took his finger and went whoop and fixed it. And apparently
Wow.
there's a crucial time period in the immediate stages when you're born, when you're starting to become like this thing. Like I think it's like a couple hours. There are crucial things you can fix that could affect you for the rest of your life. And I was like, so wait, if that doctor did not push my eye like that, I would have a lazy eye. He goes, you'd be 100% have a lazy eye.
You were birthed by Dr. Jesus. That's awesome.
I don't
He's just
look.
like, let me heal you, my child.
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's like one doctor just being like his fucking eyes wandering and just jabbed it and the thing just fucking went roll over like a iguana. But I can't move
Hold
that.
on, this kid's got a weird eye. He's clicking it like those dolls or something, trying to get the eye to open.
That would be the same thing like as if a kid was born and like the kid like I don't know was having like some type of organ failure and the doctor's like we got to get him to the and then dropped him and then the kid's fine. And he's like, "Well,
That's awesome.
I'm not going to be
Just
Are you going to
knocked
be mad
everything,
as a
shocked
dad?
the system,
As a dad,
started
are you
everything
going
up.
to be mad at the doctor for dropping your baby even though that drop fixed the kid's life?
I mean, what can you do? I would call it divine intervention. Just, a lucky circumstance. But it's weird. There's a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it's divine
That's what makes it really
intervention.
hard to not be religious because there's a lot of that wild stuff out there.
Divine intervention, not just a stroke of luck, like your doctor had butterfingers that fucking day and then dropped your baby and then your baby's now
Oh,
fine.
well, for sure. I think that happens all the time. Sometimes just someone will drop something and pick it up and whoosh, something will fling over their head or something, and they could have just lost their head right there. But they dropped it and just whoop, they were saved,
There has to
you
be
know.
some cases of like a doctor, like a baby's being born and the baby might have a dislodged arm or dislodged something, and the doctor, like, oh, and just fix it right into place, and the baby doesn't even feel it because you're so
I'll
freaking new.
bet you, especially as you go farther back, as you go farther back in time and doctors were a little rougher, a little gruffer, we're like, oh yeah, look, he's dislocated his shoulder coming out of the womb. So let's just fix that real fast for him. There you go, baby. Good as new.
Look, if
And it's
I'm
gonna
being
cry for a second, but
if
babies
I
cry anyway.
yeah, if I'm being born and I know that you fix something permanently, like my leg was up like backwards or twisted or something like that, and the doctor just 100% do it. I mean, if that's
For
gonna fix it
sure.
for the rest of
Little
my life,
club foot here. Hold on. There you go.
his
Good
foot's
as
on
new.
backwards. Hang on, real quick, and just fucking twist it. Like, well, here's the thing. I never knew that. Like, when I saw pictures of my nephew born, he
Baby's
was like
bones are super malleable. They would probably just heal back the right way.
not just malleable, but they're like waterlogged. They're like filled with
Very
water.
soft.
So I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was like, the baby's blue. Is he okay? They're like, well, that's what happens when babies are born because he spends so much time soaking in juices that next thing you know, this thing comes out and it's filled with water. So I'm like,
Mhm.
you can't tell me that there aren't certain things you can do. Like, could we make our baby taller by stretch? No, don't do that. It's a fucking Willy Wonka movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you might end up with a bad result. I wouldn't try it. You'd have like this 7 foot tall, like super skinny kid. You were like, well, we were just trying this gentle pulling method when he was young, and this is what we got. He's only 85 pounds. He'll never be a basketball player.
I don't know if your brain thinks this way, but think how weird it is that you can be too small and want to be taller because being too small, you have it makes things a little bit more difficult when it comes to reaching higher shelves or just certain aspects in life. Even getting a relationship can affect that too if you're too small.
Mhm.
But then being
I
too
know ladies are
tall,
not into small guys.
well, hang on. Being too tall, having giantism, your body is immediately against itself from the start because you're already growing way too big where there's a fear that you might
Mhm.
end up hurting yourself. Like people have gotten surgeries to knock like a few inches off or knock something off so their bones aren't being so compressed all the time. And it was like, is there a fucking win anywhere? Like what's the perfect height? 5'10", 6 foot?
Yeah, 5'10", 5'11", somewhere in there for guys. Five, 5'6", 5'8" for girls, somewhere in there.
But I like an Amazon
Any
woman.
bigger than that, and yeah, it's a lot of strain on the body, and a lot of the times that cuts years off your life.
But I like an Amazon woman.
Oh yeah, well for sure, and they can wrap their legs all the way around you, and stuff. That's hang you. You can hang by the tree when you're pleasuring them, Wee.
Or just be like, hey, stick your arm up. I want to swing. And you just grab onto it and start swinging. You see
You
those
could use her as a pull-up bar.
That's what I'm
It
saying.
would be good for her too.
You see
Both of
those
you would be working out.
perfect workout videos of like a couple on Instagram or whatever. And then like we're doing push-ups while she's doing yoga and they're both working out like a certain muscles and stuff like that. Like dude's doing a tricep
Hmm.
bend and he's using his girlfriend while she's also doing handstands. So it's helping both of them out. And I'm like, yo, that would be the perfect relationship. You have an 8 foot tall woman. You just like, can I do hanging leg races from your arm? It's like, sure. And then just fucking climb up.
Sure, honey. I needed a good arm workout today. Yeah, she could like lift you while you're doing it, so you guys would both be working. Yeah.
Is it selfish of me if I choose a girl or if I choose a person to be in a relationship with based on their certain features that might be passed down to my kid?
No, I think that that's pretty much genetic. We are going to look for features and qualities that we want in our children, regardless, even if we're not paying attention to it.
Okay, instead of choosing a person based on their how I find them attractive, I choose a person that I find repulsive, but I know that they're going to be an excellent bearer of my kids. You're telling me that's not selfish?
Well, if someone was repulsive, then they would make like half ugly babies with you. So like that wouldn't work
No,
out very
no,
good.
no. You're messing it up because look, here it is. Maybe
Oh,
she's
no,
the
no.
most gorgeous person in the world, but everyone's beauty definition is defined differently.
You're
So
right. I
maybe
remember it's two hot people make an ugly baby and two ugly people make a hot baby, but I'm not sure how it breaks down with an ugly person and a hot person.
so I need to find out which one of my parents were ugly because I like to I think I'm like a classic five. Like I'm a five for sure.
No, no, you're a cutie. I'd give you a 7.5 at least,
I feel
at the very
uncomfortable now.
least.
We're not rating cereals. um because it made me like because I started studying genetics, I think around like probably 10th grade, 11th grade, because my ex, she had three sisters. And all three of her sisters looked exactly like her mom, but she looked completely different. She was the odd one out, which is weird that I found her attractive rather than the other ones. Um, and I was looking at it, I
Well,
was
it's a
like,
good thing. That would have really got you in trouble.
yeah, probably. I was looking at
You're
her, I
like,
was
no, I
like,
like these other three.
but I was looking at her, I was like, where do you get your genetics from? And I was like looking at her family and she got it from her grandma. It switched over.
Mhm.
And it was like there's quadrant one, quadrant two, quadrant three, and quadrant four. She got all like the recessive stuff and that's what she looked like. And then all her other ones got the dominant traits. All her others. I was like, damn. I was like my brother has two kids. One looks exactly like you can 100% tell that's my brother. But then the other one looks exactly like the mom. And I'm like, "Oh my god, like how do you choose which traits are obviously there's dominant traits like blonde hair, but then
Yeah,
sometimes you could have a full family of blonde hair people and the kid's born with black hair. You're like, what the hell happened? That makes the kid feel like
true.
he's adopted. Then you just got to roll with it.
Hey, I'll give you a crazy one. My my uh my first biological son looks so much like my roommate at the time. Isn't that crazy?
Bro, it goes back to what we're saying. Did you track what happened that night?
I don't know. I still to this day wonder a little bit.
You got to get the stopwatch and be like, all right, so it was exactly 9 months ago. So we did have sex that day, but I didn't get home until 5 p.m. I'm timing this kid being conceived around the 9 a.m. mark. So what happened when I went to work?
Oh, see, who can remember that far back? He's 20 now.
All right, now we need to start funding into a time machine to be like, okay, what the fuck
Well, the
happened?
problem was that my first kids, I got with my ex-wife when I was 19, and she had a 2-year-old son, and so like from 19, I was responsible. I was a father, but I never got that chance to like turn 21 and drink and get it out of my system. So I do kind of feel bad for my two oldest because a lot of their youth was spent with me trying to gain my youth by drinking and partying and doing things in excess because I still wanted to be young. I didn't want to have the responsibility of kids. And I figure I did raise them and they turned out pretty good, but I do kind of feel bad looking back later on about it, like that I really did a lot of partying for that first, 6 years or 7 years before I started buttoning it up and going, oh, well, maybe I should, spend a little bit more time with the kids. Maybe I should, not be spending every other night going out drinking. But the problem was my ex, she never got that. She just kept drinking and partying. And so that was why that didn't work out.
Did you ever raise the question to them and ask them about that? Like I always consider like what was your easy breakfast that you would make for the kids? Because I was like, I look back and like, oh, I can't believe we're having breakfast for dinner. And I just realized, no, you're hungover as shit. Like that's what it is. But it's an extravagant event for kids. It makes you wonder, like, because this hit
Yeah.
well, this hit me the other day when I was with my nephew. I was looking at him, I was like, we're building a little bit of a puzzle. As much as it might seem boring to me or kind of whatever weird to me, my nephew is having the time of his life. And I was like thinking, like, man, when I was a kid, I did this when I was building a puzzle. I was doing this, I was doing that. And I was like, now you like this is like it feels like you're getting 50% of what I had. And it was like, I hope that doesn't affect, later in life. He's like, well, we built a puzzle. That was it. It was like, no, it was like, he's going to look at it like it's the world.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you with the second batch though, I have spent like lots of time with them. Even though I work a lot, I've spent tons of time with them. And the only problem with that is then they get spoiled for your time. And then if you don't spend time with them, if you get busy and you have to work a few extra hours that week, boy, man, you really hear about it. So it
Yeah.
kind of goes a little bit both ways. They have to have some room to grow, but at the same time, you have to spend enough time with them that they feel like they're loved and taken care of.
It's kind of like a gamble. You're really just praying to God that you do enough to where the kid's not messed up for the rest of their life, but
For sure.
you're also praying that you don't make it so easy that the kid never wants to try and strive for anything in life as well.
Hmm. Parenting is one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah,
It takes so much thought, so much effort, like, and it's constantly like you constantly have to change your game plan in the middle of things and stuff because what'll work for a year will just stop working all of a sudden. And then you'll have to come up with some completely new way, new out of the box way to get around a problem that you're having with them. It's so tricky. And then nowadays everybody's like you can't even do any kind of physical punishments on your kids because Lord forbid that you give them a complex or something. I'm not giving him a complex, I'm giving him a swat on the butt because he's giving me an attitude, because he did something that was so outright disrespectful that I feel like he needs to know, hey, you stepped out of line right there. And
he
a little swat on the
just
butt, that little top of the head bap, the little
yeah,
just hey, listen, pay attention. You know what you did there? Not good. Don't do that again.
he
That's what you do.
just stabbed that person in the leg with a pair of scissors, and you're telling me I can't slap my kid?
Indeed. My kids are like punching each other and stuff. And I can't run up and be like, don't hit.
I don't know what it is about. Like I saw my little nephew was sliding down the steps and he was sliding on his butt. Like he would fall down each step on his butt and keep going down. And I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna break your and I just started turning into like my parent. And I was like,
Oh yeah, it's
oh,
bad.
like what the like I used to do that for fun all the time and I never even worried. But now that I'm like older and looking at a little kid doing it, I get so nervous because I'm like, there could be so many things that could happen that could
Oh,
get
I
wrong
know
with
when
you.
they like climb a tree and stuff. I remember when I was like 7 or 8, I had a pine tree in my yard and I would climb up to the top of it. It was a good 100 feet up in the air. And I would climb so high up in that thing that I would sway side to side in the breeze. And now I think about my 7-year old doing that and I'm like, oh God, no. Like no, no way. I
I
cut that lower branch off so he couldn't climb it.
I gotta adopt the traits of my grandfather that watched me fall from a tree that was like 2 stories high. I fell and hit like
Jeez.
every freaking branch on the way
Oh
down. Like it was
no.
like a movie, dude. I was pretty hurt. Probably more emotionally because my grandfather was just down there working on the lawnmower and just looks over and goes, "That's what you get. I told you not to climb the tree." And then he just goes back to working on the lawnmower. And I'm like on the ground, like crying, like trying to get attention. He was like, "You can sit there and cry all night. I don't care." And I'm like, "Okay." But it was like he was the nicest and probably smartest man I've ever met in my entire life.
But he knows the kids are durable, and if you don't break something, you're fine.
Right?
Rub some dirt on it, get back
Kids are
out
like
there.
modern day Supermen. They could run right into a wall and be okay. You're like, God, that would knock me out for a
Oh,
week.
the stuff that they do is crazy. I've seen my kids jump like off of the back of the couch and land on their face and chest on the floor with like, a half inch of carpet padding, and like hard stone underneath, and they're fine. And if I felt like that, I wouldn't be able to walk for 3 weeks.
See, what we're talking about right now, this discovery that we are talking about kids being so durable, this is exactly in Africa when they start building child warriors. That's exactly what their perception
Indeed,
was.
right at 7 or 8. Yeah. Yeah. Old enough to put that key around their neck that's going to protect them from being shot by the enemy. And they give them an AK and they send them on their way. That's right.
He can barely hold that AK. Well, it's aiming up a little bit, right? Well, everybody's fighting is going to be taller than him, so it makes sense.
There we go. He's going to take them out at the knees.
That's the worst, getting shot in the knee.
Oh, God.
I'd rather get shot anywhere, but the not. No, wait, I did not want to get shot in the
Anywhere
crotch.
but the guts. Oh, the guts is the one that worries me. I've had nightmares of being like just Uzi sprayed in the guts, just, ah!
What
I
are your
just
dreams like?
realistic nightmares. It was scary.
What is your worst nightmare?
Oh, I used to have a really bad one about going over cliffs in a car into water. So like it would be like, and it would always be just the most gnarly. We'd be driving up in the mountains or something, and then we'd just fall like hundreds of feet, just tumble down the side of the cliff, and then land in water and sink under the water. And then hopefully you're not knocked out, that you can swim out. But usually you get to that scenario where you're inside the car and the water's over the car, and you have to open a window or a door so you can get out, and you're freaking out, and then the dream ends.
And the deeper you go, the more water's going to be on top of you.
That'd be horrible. What a terrible way to go. We just had a guy that drove over a bridge when that snow hit. They When they plowed it, they made a ramp on the side of the Glen Jackson Bridge, and this poor guy in a truck went over the side and right into the river, right into Columbia. And they didn't even know about it for hours. And yeah, when they found him, it was basically just body removal because he had been in there so long. It's rough. I was just like, wow, what a terrible way to go. That would be so horrifying. The only thing I would hope is that it knocked me out when I hit the water, and that way at least I would just drown being knocked out.
I'd rather it happen and me not know it's going to happen than happen like know it's coming. You know what I mean? Like somebody coming at me with a knife and knowing in that instant fear. But I think the worst thing we've ever had in our town was there was a dad that was driving a pontoon boat and he had been drinking and he had his kids like dangling off the front of the pontoon boat and he ran over his son and his daughter.
Oh no, that'd be horrible.
Like they got hit with the blade immediately because the first thing, if you fall off a boat spontaneously, like if you just like it randomly happens, you try your hardest to get as fast as you possibly can to the surface, and they
Hmm.
came up right at the propeller part.
Right as the propeller went over, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be rough,
the
man.
the
You
girl
you would
lived,
feel
but
like a shit for the rest of your life.
the girl lived, but she was like disfigured and stuff like that. But it was like, oh my god, like that's like that. And then when the dude got into the motorcycle accident, he was driving and a truck had pulled out in front of him while he was going like 60, and it sliced him in half. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
it's crazy because nobody wants to see that, but everybody's neck was turned like fucking getting whiplash. Like, oh my god, is that a top half
Yeah.
of a body?
Yeah, I knew a guy that was missing like his whole entire left leg because of a motorcycle accident where he had he was going too fast, hit a corner, flew off the road, ran into a telephone pole and hit the pole so hard that his body went one way and his leg went the other. That would be crazy. The
You know what
speed that you'd have to
sucks
be going.
is they don't let you keep that leg.
I know, right? I'd want it as a trophy.
Like when I had my tooth pulled, they wouldn't let me keep the tooth, and I was like, "But it's mine. I grew that."
Yeah, I think it's something about biohazard, bio waste.
That's
They're
bullshit.
really picky about it. Same with I wanted my tonsils when they took my tonsils out, and they said the same thing. We're like, no, we can't give them to you.
We
They
should
were
be
like, we can
able to
take a
get
picture,
that.
but that's all we can do.
We should be able to get those.
That's right. It came from us. It's my part.
Hmm.
That's
Return.
see, that makes me sad. Like, what if I wanted my penis cut off? I could keep my penis. Like
Dude,
it's
that's
very attached
something
to me.
that's something you're fucking fighting for if that comes off. You're like, I want that in a
That's
damn
right.
jar.
That's right. I'd want to walk around with it like a small club. Wee 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 wee.
What would you honestly do if they had to remove your dick and they were like, "Sorry, you don't get it." What
Just
how would you react? Cuz I would lose my shit.
I don't know if there would be any point to go on living. Like it's not the most important thing, but it's kind of the most important thing.
I would put a gun to somebody's head and be like, "I want my dick."
You could do like dick off, like
It's in the
you
bin
could
with all
steal
the others
someone's
and
dick.
you're searching around, which
You
one's
could steal
mine?
someone's dick and then you could steal their wife and you could do their wife with his dick.
Is it
Like
cheating?
face off, but
Is
with
that cheating?
dicks.
Is that cheating?
As long as it's with Nicolas Cage, then you could have that face off with dicks, it'd be awesome.
Not like trading Pokemon cards in school. Okay. This is a part of
Dick
you.
off. You wake up, and you're strapped to a table and they're like, "Hey there, son. Guess what? We just had a dick off." And you're like, "Wait a minute. I don't feel my butt feels okay." And he's like, "No, I just traded my penis with yours. Now you have a small one and I have your big one."
I
And
wouldn't
now I'm gonna go bone your wife with it.
try and look at the positives of that though. Is the person of a different ethnicity? Because if you could say you have a black dick, even though it might
Oh
be
yeah,
small,
that would be pretty crazy.
then people can't say you're being whatever, you're being offensive to the culture. It's like, actually, my dick is black. Like that would be really, really hard for people to understand.
That's a way better one than I have a black friend for sure. But there's no such thing as a small black dick. Come on. Come on.
I'm not going into this one. I can tell you
Although I
that.
have always wondered about that. Like that there's got to be at least a few of them out there. Black guys with small penises. That has to be so torturous because you've got all these, 40-year-old white women throwing themselves at you. "Oh, it's a black guy. Oh, yeah, the black guy. Woo." And then, you show and she's like, "That's it. Um, I'm sorry."
I'm not getting canceled over dick talk. It's not happening. I'll die on
Hey,
another
whatever.
hill.
I'm used to having a small one already. It's good.
Jason, we've been going on for a bit now. Where can people find you at?
You can find me all over the place. I'm on Twitter under what have I got? Monkey D Floofy right now. Or Jason Lamproe as a
What
call
is that?
sign.
What is the monkey defloofy thing?
It's a One Piece. Monkey D Luffy is the head pirate on One Piece. He's the captain. And he's badass. I love that cartoon. I'm on episode 400 as we speak. And I still have like 600 and something to go. It's so awesome.
No,
It's so good.
no. I get anxiety from that show because I used to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and it would be playing on Adult Swim, and then I'd be like half asleep, half awake, and then I'd go back to bed 5 minutes later. So like I just watch it now and I just feel tired.
It's so intense. Like the powers that they give people and stuff are just like they're so unreal, but they're cool at the same time. Like there are people that can literally like change the laws of physics and pull people apart without killing them. So you like they could just chop you into like slices of you and then spin those slices around and then you're like, "Well, how am I going to get back together?"
Nope,
It's pretty intense.
nope.
But yeah, anyway, you could find me at Mixed Media Force podcast on all of the podcatchers. You can also listen to my little baby, the Ron Moen Half podcast. Been doing that one for a little bit, and I just got my new mic and mixer set up, and it sounds really good. So now it's new and improved.
Sounds so crisp and so clean.
It's about time. I've been recording with 2 smartphones for a really long time now, and I've gotten good at it, but there's only so good you can get. The sound quality only gets so good with a smartphone.
It's not just about the quality, it's about the person that's making that product as well.
True. I mean, a lot of people listen. I just hit 25K listens, and
Woo!
I haven't made a media forest with my new mic yet. So obviously there's something fun in there. I got a lot of fun parody songs and stuff. I think it's enough for people to get into, something to make people laugh. I like spreading the positivity.
I like that. We went from dick talk to spreading positivity. I like that.
It's all about spreading the positivity. I'm all about the love.
Sometimes, if you're a real inventive person, you could do both.
That's right. Spreading the love.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast.